All right, it is 2022 and we are still talking about Duel Disks. I should say still talking about Duel Disks, right? Because Yu-Gi-Oh! Is celebrating over 25 years of history, but this is the new Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duel Duel Disk. And if you don't know what Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duels are and you don't recognize any of the characters in this box, that's okay. You can find out a lot about Rush Duels, maybe even just from watching this video alone. But this is from Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens, and so each of the characters, right, Yuga, Luke, Gavin, or Gakuto, depending on which version you're watching, and Romin Shan are the main characters from the Yu-Gi-Oh! 7 series, which focuses on a different type of Yu-Gi-Oh! Yuga here decided that he was bored with the rules of the game and he would make his own rules. And in order to make those rules, this is where we get the Yu-Gi-Oh! 7's Duel Disk, which is styled, if you notice, with 1, 2, 3 spell and trap slots and 1, 2, 3 monster slots. Now that's not the only amount of goodies that it has. If we take a look at the sides here of the box, oops, might need to flip this over, you'll look and notice that the actual sides open up, and this can be used as a full 5-on-5 Duel Disk. But there's no better way to find that out than to open this up, so why don't we go ahead and crack open this never-before-opened Duel Disk and see what's inside. And take a crack at this packing tape. We're going to try to be as gentle as we can. So let's see what Rush Duel treasures are inside. So I'm pulling the box top off here just straight forward so we can find out what's in here at the same time together. Well, wow, the Rush Duel Duel Disk looks gorgeous, but there's also a number of other goodies in here. I want to start with those by taking a look at what appear to be some Rush Duel cards. And so let me go ahead and pull this over. Now, if you've never seen a Rush Duel card before, it's going to look really different, right? If you notice, the first thing that's different is the photograph, the picture, is a lot larger on a Rush Duel card. So we're going to take this open. And I know there are some people like, wait, no, stop, Pheromone, there's still time. Well, don't worry, I'm not going to actually open these. But you'll notice that this is a DDS-style Blue Eyes White Dragon. It's not quite a Rush Rare, which is a special rarity from Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duels. It looks like what we're going to be trying our best not to open is a special Sevens boss monster, as well as Mirror Force, the identification cards for each of the characters, and a Blue Eyes White Dragon Legend. Man, that Blue Eyes is nice. I'm going to have to decide whether or not I'm going to open this package after all. But for now, we're going to let the star of the show be the Duel Disk and keep this in its package. So then let's take a look at the Duel Disk. It looks like there's something missing, right? If you notice at the center there, you can actually see where the Rush Duel deck box and the Rush Duel cards might go. I've got 2 deck boxes for the starter decks that I've had since Rush Duels originally came out. What we're going to do is open those up and then put one of them into the starter deck box here, and then see how the Duel Disk works from there. So I've had a lot of Duel Disks, and this might be the first one I've ever opened that had its own separate deck case, which would be loaded in separately. Take a quick look here and see how that looks. It's got kind of a spring-loaded switch, which is really neat. Again, they really have not done this in the past, but I'm going to have to figure out how. Oh, it just opens up like that. And then there's a little bit of a spring-loaded switch. Each one of my Rush Duel decks are 40 cards sleeved. I know this does use sleeves, but let's find out how comfortably it fits those sleeves in the package. I'm going to take my Yuga Odo deck here. And I know it's my Yuga Odo deck because we have the Sevens Road Magician here at the front. And then we're just going to try, just like any duelist would on any given day, to fit this in. It looks like it actually fits pretty well. If you see, there's not really like a lot of air or anything added there. That's just the spring basically lifting up. But yeah, you can close it completely, which is nice, although I wouldn't recommend trying to draw a card through there because there's this line here. So when it's in play action, you probably want to fold this down right there, and that's going to be how it goes in. Then when you're actually just drawing the cards, it does just come out quite nicely here. And so there is our normal monster there. So let's go ahead and pop the Duel Disk open and see how this deck box, which is a really like new thing for Duel Disks, fits in. so we are going to crack this part open. Looks like the Duel Disk is already ready to jump out here. It's barely in there, but that's kind of a good thing because it means there was nothing that was like rubbing against the Duel Disk in the packaging. Looks like there are definitely buttons on each of the Duel Disk's panels, and we'll go over what each of those field zones does when you press that button. But first, we want to go ahead and see where the power button is on the back here. And so it looks like there is a little open battery plate. I'm not sure if there's already batteries in here, but if you notice, there's a little spot for you to press down here. So we're just going to use a regular assembled jewelry screwdriver here. And let's see if we can get that through here. Oh, looks like it is untightening nicely. And so we're going to open that up and find out that we are shy 3 AA batteries. Well, let's see if we can fix that. Okay, so we do have 3 batteries. We're going to go ahead and put these in just one at a time. I actually have not taken a look at the starter deck manual because I really want to have an organic experience. That same sort of feeling where you turn on the Duel Disk for the first time and you're just wowed by whatever is in front of you. So we've got our batteries in. First off, this is going to take 3 AAs, which I'm not sure are included, but they're going to go right here on this back panel. Then there are 2 modes that you can access from this switch down here. One of them is going to be where it lights up but doesn't make sound, and the other is where the sound is on. You can see that actually in plain English here. It just says sound on, slide downward. So we're going to do that, but we're going to do that while it's facing the camera so you guys get a chance to see it. So let's go ahead and flip the switch. Did I go the wrong way? Perhaps I did, because I didn't hear any sound there. Let's try that the other way. So that is the voice of Yuga Odo. I'm curious to know if this has any additional sounds when we try touching the slots here. Okay. So that would be Monster o Shokan, which means summoning a monster. So same deal here. If we want to set a monster in defense on the Duel Disk by Bandai Proplica, you have to press and hold that monster in. It does look like there are some little hooks here to make it really easy to have that monster, face up here. Obviously, you would set a monster face down, so we're going to flip that card face down and then press and hold it. Now, it still did the monster summoning. Let me see if it does still do it or not, so I'm going to try one more time by holding it. So that would be the first new thing I'm finding here, is that at least that is not the same command. We're going to take a quick look at the instruction manual and then go back to exploring the rest of the Duel Disk. So take a look at the manual here. So, it looks like the instruction manual has a number of different buttons you can press that'll give you different sound effects. So let's go ahead and try those, starting with this one. Well, I'm not hearing anything there. Why don't we move to the next button? Okay, so that actually has the life point displays. So that means we have 6,600 life points. Let's see what happens when we press the third one. That modulates the 10s, so it could be 6,600 even. Let's go to the fourth button. Wow, that modulates the 1s, so we'll be 6,600 flat. And the fifth button. That finalizes your life points. So again, if I press this one, that would be 5,600, 5,500. Let's go down to 5,555, and then we'll press that button. That's nice. It's a little bit lighter weight than the Bandai Proplica for sure, but the buttons don't feel any cheaper as a result. Finally, I'm going to take a look at what this S button does. Okay, so it looks like we've got quotes from throughout the show. Now that's cool. So, just like we saw from the packaging, it's true that the starter manual basically lays out that we've got our Duel Disk, the cards that I'm still trying not to open, but let me say they are pretty tempting. We've got the ID cards as well, and then the handle slot. The handle is a relatively newer addition to Duel Disks. They didn't start adding those, at least from my familiarity. I didn't really notice that they were adding them until the Bandai Proplica one, but there probably is another Duel Disk that has that handle. What I mean by that handle is when I go ahead and unpackage this portion right here, you'll notice that instead of it just going straight into my arm, there's a little grip. And that makes sense because, especially with the Bandai Proplica Duel Disk, that's actually 7 whole pounds. And so if you've ever tried to hold 7 pounds just by your wrist alone, well, it can be difficult. I don't think the Rush Duel Duel Disk is 7 pounds, but let me go ahead and strap this on and we'll get it attached and see how it feels. So it looks like we can just put our hand through there. We can lay down one of these straps and lay down the other strap as well. So that fits quite well. Now it's really just about connecting this portion to the bottom of the Duel Disk. So I'm going to do that next. And I want to say there are some grooves here that you can see right here, 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 and here. And you probably shouldn't be doing this with your arm plugged into the slot, but it just kind of feels cooler, right? So I'm going to try to line this up. Line up the shot here without scratching up the bottom. It looks like there are some tabs, and so these tabs are going to need the biggest points of the little key connectors here, and then we're going to slide that way. So let's get all of those in at the same time. So let's talk about the view that really matters the most. Now that we've gotten everything attached, you can see what the Duel Disk looks like. Played around with it just a little bit as I was getting everything installed to make sure that all the parts were working. If you notice on the back here, once the display is really clicked in, which is done with a couple of keys on the back slidden in, once that's in, man, does this thing not need any additional help, right? You literally don't have to worry about it bumping into stuff or anything like that. But let's take a look at what it looks like when your deck is slotted in. And it really just feels just like the show, right? You've already got your cards prefabbed in here, and you can already see there's a lot of space left. But all you got to do is just, do I have that right? Or is that going the wrong direction? Ah, it is going the wrong direction. You want it to slot in just like that. And the only thing that's required, I think, is that magnetic? Oh my goodness, that's magnetic. That literally just goes on there. It doesn't do anything further than that, which means, depending on which side you want to draw, there's a little bit of an inlet on either side here. And it does appear that it's magnetic on either side as well. Oh, that's too cool. I really like a lot of these little grooves that are in here just to make things kind of easier. For instance, I'm going to try to draw a card here. Yeah, that came out perfectly. And then once it's time to slot in one of our spell and trap zones, a little bit easier than the Bandai Proplica Duel Disk because all the parts are, in a very even spot. They're not on corners or anything like that. So if you wanted to make this your everyday Duel Disk, well, you really could. And because of those additional slots on either side here, you really can make this your everyday Duel Disk. I know it's not exactly meant to be, but remember in the show, they do have such things as Master Duels. They're not just about Rush Duels, although that probably is their favorite hobby, right? But yeah, you really could use this as an everyday Duel Disk, and it does appear that not only do you have those different slots on the side here, but it just feels right? So I want to talk about what might be the only view that matters to most duelists, and that's going to be what this looks like when you're staring it down. Once you get this portion slotted in here, which we did while I was getting the batteries installed, this really is a sturdy everyday Duel Disk. And you might be asking yourself, well, hey, Pheromone, what do you mean by a sturdy everyday Duel Disk? This thing only has 3 slots. Well, if you take a look at the outside of the box, you'll already find the following surprise, that this has additional slots on either side of the Duel Disk. And those slots on either side of the Duel Disk do allow you to, again, be able to use this really as an everyday Duel Disk. But you probably want to know what the boot up sequence looks like. So on the other side of the Duel Disk, right here, but where my left arm is, there's going to be a little bracket button right here. And you'll notice that it's going to say not only Goha Corporation, but basically this way for sound towards the bottom of the Duel Disk, and this way for sound to be turned off, but the rest of the Duel Disk to be turned on. So we're going to go ahead and turn that on. And you'll notice I might have already goofed. That might be the version without sound. Let's try that with sound then. Very cool. So let's talk about a couple of things while I get this off and we can take a look at it in a more three-dimensional way. The first thing is that not only does it start with Yuga's stunning voice, but it also lights up on the boot sequence, which is kind of similar to what they've done with some of the other premium Duel Disks they've had in the past. Now, as a premium Duel Disk, it's actually relatively cheaper than most. It was 7,700 yen when it first came out, which is about $70, although you should have expect to pay more of that than you ordinarily would if you're buying this on the secondary market. When I got this, it was a fresh pre-order, but these are no longer available for pre-order in Japan. Now, I wanted to get both hands off of this so you could see, remember that deck box that we were talking about earlier? All you got to do is it's magnetic, and this is something that's totally new. You just slap that on, and works the same way on either side. So if you want to draw from this edge or if you want to draw from this edge, they have got you covered on both. There doesn't really seem like there's any belt loops or anything like that, so I don't know if you would keep this on your belt, but it does have this next-gen like cosplay vibe to it, where you just pop that in, you're good to go. Now, these sort of grooves, these run tracks, they appear all over the Duel Disk. So earlier, we were showing off that cat. Well, if you want to press in and summon, you'll see first there's a light. And I don't know that you can set monsters on other Duel Disks. If you press and hold, sometimes you get a different sound. But you notice he still said Monster Shokan, which is Japanese for summoning the monster. So we're going to try that on each of the slots and maybe just try different lengths. Nah, that's not it either. Now, I don't think there's any sounds for putting in spell and trap cards, but that actually would be something that's relatively new. I don't think we've seen that from previous Duel Disks, and we haven't seen that from the last Bandai Proplica. Other than that, though, other than the fact that it doesn't quite make as many sounds, or at least I haven't discovered those sounds, the Duel Disk honestly is really cool. Beyond being able to, you know, hold everything out, use it as a full Duel Disk, especially for those monster-heavy decks, being able to keep it as a compressed SEVENS one. I love the handle over here. This is probably one of the better ideas they've had. If you compare this in size, though, to other Duel Disks, you'll start to notice how small it is almost immediately. For instance, if you take a look at the compressed GX Duel Disk, the compressed GX Duel Disk is pretty much bigger than that, give or take an inch or two in the other places. It does use sleeves like the compressed Duel Disk, so that is exciting. If you take a look against the Bandai Proplica Duel Disk, this one is gigantic and weighs a whole lot more. So again, you're going to see just in terms of size comparison, it's hard to even fit those two in the same sized shot. And so the only thing that we can fit here in the shot is going to be the SEVENS Duel Disk. In terms of like other really neat things that it does, let's take a quick look at the instruction manual and make sure that there's nothing that we're missing. So let's see. Well, it definitely shows photos of the magnetic deck box. It seems to suggest that 40 cards are sleeved, probably the best way to go, although that's not the maximum amount you can use in a Rush Duel. It does look like we were able to catch the digital light display as well as the magnetic hook. It does seem like there's something different here for the two different monster settings, but let's see if there really is something to that. There's also special settings for the spells and traps, so why don't we experiment like that too? So one of the questions I know you already might be asking is there any sound or light coming from the extra monster zones, not literally extra monster zones, but these extra monster zones that are on the left and right? And the situation with that is no, there is no light and sound. Now for a Rush Duel, you're really only going to be using those center slots anyway, so it's not that big of a deal, but it could be a deal breaker for the right duelist, so I wholly understand that. That said, the life points are fully animated just like preceding Duel Disks. You might see it looks like it's flashing, but it's really just going on, off. So any other flashing you might see is going to be from the camera's recording. But take a look at this. If I go ahead and get that set up, works just like the show. So you can go from 8,000 to 2,000 to 1,000. Can we go even lower here? 200. How about that? 200. And then finally That is pretty exceptional. It's not quite what we've seen in previous Duel Disks where we might get an anime character screaming at their final moment, but it really does give that sense that with a pair of these, you really could have an all TV show style Rush Duel experience. If you don't know too much about Rush Duels, you might take a look at Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duel Dawn of the Battle Royale. It is a 3D game that we've actually streamed on this channel before and that I stream on and off again on my Twitch that allows you to not only connect with duelists across the world, but you really do get to have that entire Rush Duel experience. It's something that's just totally brand new to Yu-Gi-Oh! At large. While it's true that we've had a couple of, 3-on-3 formats before, such as Duel Terminal and Speed Duels, as well as Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, this is really different. This has specially curated cards really made just for this experience. So the closest you're going to get to an in-person Switch Duel, or excuse me, an in-person Rush Duel, is definitely going to be buying through that Switch game, which I'll put a detailed link to in the description. All right, I know we've been talking about it quite a bit, and we have been going back and forth, but I think I am going to do it. We're going to go ahead and open up these cards, which include Blue Eyes White Dragon, a SEVENS Road monster of some kind, Mirror Force, and then the ID cards, basically like the locator cards from Battle City, but a little bit more unique to each of the duelists. So why don't we go ahead and do it now? Here we go, bottoms up. Let me grab a scissor so that we can very cleanly get this open and it's not really torn. So we are going to go ahead and cut this open. And there we go. Okay. So it's open, no turning back now. So there are a number of cards in here. Some of them you're going to recognize, especially for Rush Duel fans. And if not, they'll still have, well, that new card feeling to them. First of which is going to be the Blue Eyes White Dragon. It is kind of a combination between how they make the DDS rare look and the sort of exclusive vibe that you got going on with Rush Duels. Now, you might notice in the upper left corner of the card, there's something that says Legend, and it might be hard to see just because of, how the card is positioned here in the camera. But Legend cards, you can only run one Legend in your deck, which means you're only running one Blue Eyes White Dragon, which can seem really, well, painful if you are a fan of the show. I'm just going to set that here for now. Taking a look at the next one, let's see how good my katakana skills are. Looks like this is saying Sebenzu Rodo, and then after that, I think it is Enchanta? Is that Seven Roads Enchanter? Enchanta? You might need to correct me on that since it's been a little bit since I've had to read a card straight from Japan. But it is a really neat, addition to the SEVENS Road family, and it looks gorgeous, and it looks like it fits in with the rest of those monsters. That's not a Legend card, though, so you can run multiples of this. Which is a Legend card, though, is Mirror Force, and man, that's pretty enough to run in a TCG deck. Now, you'll notice on the back of any Rush Duel card, it does say down here, Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duel, so these cards cannot be intermingled, even if you have a normal Mirror Force, but it is really gorgeous. And then the remainder here are some Amiibo-style cards here. We've got basically the student IDs for each of the characters. So you got Oldol, we've got Luke, we have Gakuto or Gavin in the dubbed version, and then finally we have Romin-chan, and it is really neat to basically have the whole family. What do these look like on the back? Okay, so they're also official Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duel cards. So we have talked about quite a little bit, right? We have talked about the cool ID cards that come in with the set. We've talked about, wow, these cards, the Mirror Force, Blue Eyes White Dragon, and Seven Roads Enchanter. Talked about the Duel Disk itself and all the cool magnetic attachments that it has that I really hope to see in future Duel Disks. We've talked about the sort of lights and sounds you get whenever you press all the different buttons, including summons and sets, as well as adjusting the life points here. So honestly, just a really cool Duel Disk for an affordable price point. If you're lucky enough to get one of these for the approximate $70 that it is, awesome. Get it if you can. If you're somebody like me who ended up having to pay a little bit extra if they've reserved it, that's still cool too. This is going to be really neat when it comes in the mail for you. And if it's something you're just looking for, honestly, this is a really good everyday Duel Disk. And again, I mean that. Those extra slots, well, they don't light up. This is going to let you have a nice compact Duel Disk, which works across multiple formats. If you have any questions, though, feel free to let me know, and I will be happy to talk you through whatever it is that we didn't cover in this Duel Disk video.